I've got to say, relative calm, thankfully, on the streets of England. Long may it continue. There are some people taking to the streets in Belfast. I will be cutting across there live imminently, and I can show you some of the scenes there. But I just want to focus as well on the streets of England, as I'm saying. They are literally quite calm right now. But it caught my eye that when it came to the rioting that has been occurring, it took place in 7 out of the 10 most deprived areas. And I don't actually think that that was a coincidence. I'm talking about places like Middlesbrough, Blackpool, Liverpool, Hartlepool, Hull, Manchester and Blackburn. I've also got to state the obvious as well and point out that many of these affected areas in this way also have a higher than average proportion of asylum seekers in taxpayer-funded accommodation. Now, it is quite unpopular along many to have the conversations about what has caused the situation, but more importantly, how do we resolve these issues so that we can move forward and hope that all of this is a thing of the past? Paul Embery.
Economic insecurity has caused it. Immigration levels, a lack of integration in some of these communities, a fear of crime increasing in a lot of these communities. And this is a simmering resentment that has been boiling for years. And anyone who knows working class communities and comes from working class communities, I think all three of us do.
In fact, actually, hold that thought, because I did just mention Belfast. Before we get stuck into the calmness of the streets of England, let's just cross live to Belfast. Our reporter, Dougie Beattie, is there as we speak. Good evening, Dougie. What's happening there?
Well, we have 2 protests, one pro-immigration, one anti-immigration. Must be said that the pro side, full of civil servants, is much, much larger than this anti-immigration side. And I'm actually joined by a man who gave his all for country, Paris during the Falklands War, and you are really trying to get some sense into this anti-immigration side.
Well, I'm here. I fully support what the anti-immigration process or protest is for. I am against mass illegal immigration and the impact that is having on communities, particularly working class communities here in Belfast. But I'm also here to try and ensure, to the best of my ability and what little influence I have, that it is a peaceful protest, that we don't let young folk get pulled into violence or labelled right-wing thugs or extremists in any way. The vast majority of people here, in fact all the people here, are responsible people. They're here for peaceful protest. They're facing severe provocation from the other side, I might add, but they're not here for violence.
I mean, you've dealt with young men who need shaped and guided all your life. I mean, what hope has these people in these areas?
Well, I've spoke to young people already here today, and I've actually spoke to them. They've had a warning that if they don't remove face coverings, that they can be liable to arrest, and the law states that. I've explained that. I've taken young fellas aside and explained that to them. Now, many of them are wearing face coverings because they're worried about their jobs. They're worried about being identified. What I've said to them is, if you get arrested, you're going to lose your job anyway.
There you go, Michelle, and things are really kicking off here. You can actually see the police here are on the protester side. The immigration side are all togged out in their TSG uniforms, while if you just come with me, Stevie, just follow me this way very, very quickly. If you look at the other side of the protest, there's a line of snatched Land Rovers between us here, and the police on the other side are standing in short-sleeved shirts, as you can see, and the provocation from this side is massive, and most of these people here are public sector workers, so it is starting to be quite the evening here in Belfast.
Remains peaceful for now. Thank you very much. I've got to say, everybody at home, I am not a riot policing or protest policing expert by any stretch of the imagination. But isn't it just basic common sense that if you've got 2 groups with completely differing opinions, such heightened emotions, why don't you try and keep them a little bit more separate? I've seen so many instances now where these kind of 2 different groups, they're almost brought to within inches of each other. I don't really understand that. It's counterproductive, if you ask me. Anyway, Paul, sorry, what was you saying?
Yeah, and I was saying all these things are a perfect storm, really, of economic and social disruption. The economic insecurity on top of immigration levels, on top of integration issues, serious integration issues, on top of, the perception of crime in working class neighbourhoods and so on. And this stuff has just been there for years. People think this has just come out of a clear blue sky. This happened, just after the election of a Labour government, and it came from nowhere. Anyone who's lived amongst these communities knows that this has been simmering for a long, long, long time. And I completely condemn the violence. There's no excuse for the violence at all. But until we address some of the root causes, then these issues are not going to go away. In fact, they're going to get worse. And my fear and my observation is that the political class in this country has got its head in the sand. What they are doing is they're going onto TV, whether it's Keir Starmer or media commentators or whoever, and saying, this is about Tommy Robinson, or this is about disinformation from hostile foreign states, or this is about Elon Musk, or this is about Nigel Farage and Suella Braverman making, provocative statements about immigration, which I think is insulting to ordinary people, because it tells them actually you've got no agency and you're a bit thick and you're easily duped by these people. If you can't get your head around the fact that these issues have been burning for years and what we're seeing now is them playing out in a violent way on our streets, then frankly, you're not fit to be in power. And it seems to me today, over the last day or two, actually, there's now a serious element of complacency in the commentary where a lot of people think, oh, it's great, we had the counter-protests and they pushed the protesters back, even though the protesters didn't really...
Protesters weren't there.
Well, this is the point I'm making. They weren't actually really there, were they? And therefore, all is well again in Britain and, we're a peaceful country at ease with itself and there's nothing to worry about anymore. That level of complacency is dangerous because those issues which have led to the violence have not gone away.
Look, ordinarily I come in here and Paul and I have a bit of a row or we disagree, but I'm sorry, on this one, you're right. And I'd like to go a bit deeper. You made a comment, Michelle, that it's in the poorest communities in the country that this happened. The reason it's happened is because people who are poor are closer to needing the council, the government, and they feel the change in resources first. Many months ago, I said if we don't take some notice of the impact that immigration has on communities, that a lack of integration has on communities, we are stirring up social problems, and we're seeing it now. So if you're someone who needs council housing, if you're someone who needs regular doctor's appointments because of a health thing, if you're someone who's struggling to find work, of course these things are much more live for you. Of course people feel more angry about it because they feel afraid. Now, if you're in your well-paid job down here in the southeast, those things might not be on your agenda in the same way. But what's interesting is this is now beginning to go across communities, regardless of people's colour. So we're all talking about immigration. Fine, that's the current thing. But there's communities who've been here, who are established for some time, who are now having a slightly different response to this. And they're now beginning to be at each other's throats. And I said, this is the point why I'm really disappointed in what Keir Starmer did when he labelled people far right. I went in the pub and I spoke to a couple of blokes, and I deliberately spoke to them because they are white working class people. I live in East London. They're very easy to find up there. And a guy said to me, well, you know what, Sean, I've never really been racist because I just don't have enough black people around me. I haven't really thought it through. But he said, hearing Keir Starmer telling me that everybody who has concerns about immigration is far right has made me think, am I? And that's the problem, because for him, he isn't like directly thinking about the numbers of immigration. He's thinking things like, is it easier to get a job? Can I house my kids? And all the rest of that. And that's where the link comes. And until people in the political class understand there is the direct link, and they're giving certain communities more permission to air their grievances than other communities, this feeling will grow. It will fester.
I've heard countless politicians talk about social media activity over the last week. Countless politicians, including the Prime Minister, talk about online social media activity, and people have got to be responsible, and we're going to bring in new laws to clamp down on, people's social media activity and so on and so forth. And as I said, Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk and Nigel Farage and stuff like that have been mentioned time and time and time again. I don't think literally I've heard a cabinet minister in the last week, or I'm not sure I've heard any politician of any party in the last week say, yes, of course the violence is wrong, but do you know what? There are some very deep-lying tensions that have led to this, that have been burning away in our communities for a long time. And we have got to deal with those. And we've got to have a serious national conversation about how we deal with those. No politician is talking about that.
We won't get there. The reason the social media things come, of course it exists. It's a little tiny piece of what's gone on and is a catalyst. But oftentimes politicians will look for something to blame, and this is easily carries the blame. But the problem about focusing on social media, the social media doesn't start anything. At worst, it might amplify, but it doesn't start. So the social media is just connecting people who have these thoughts, and unfortunately, this group of people is growing. There's some good things that came of it. People came out and said, look, we're not really wanting this racism, here's an anti-racist thing, fine. But what led to other people to come out and feel that they can publicly state that they're racist because of what's going on? And until some politician grasps the nettle and says two things. One, there is no two tiers of policing. I think that's been a real big thing. A lot of the young people I've been speaking to believe that now and will cite
loads of politicians have come out and said that there isn't any two tiers.
But there is, I'm afraid there is. I tell you now...
Keir Starmer said it, Mark Rowley, he was all about it.
They have to say that.
They have to, but they have to demonstrate. You know, we've arrested, someone's been arrested for information around the Stockport thing, but a young person said to me, but what happens about the schools when all the schools did all the stuff around Islamophobia and all the rest of that? Nobody got arrested for spreading that information. So now people have examples of two-tier policing, and that's dangerous.
One of my viewers has just emailed me and said, Michelle, I want to message you, but I'm also terrified of going to prison if I do. And I think this is quite an interesting thing that's going on in society. I don't know if anyone's been on social media today. It's been filled with Met Police. Look at this post. At Merseyside Police, look at this person. Look at this video. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. You've had your courts today, all of it being broadcast live. People getting sentenced for things that they have written on social media. Of course, I've got to say, people do need to be more mindful of what it is that they're posting. They need to be more considered. And I would argue you probably shouldn't be able to post anything anonymously, and therefore you can be held accountable for what it is you're actually saying.